So our introductory speaker is not here yet. We do hope that he's going to make it. He is a representative of the Navajo Nation. I was on a platform with him in the past year. So far, he's not here. So I'm going to go ahead and do the introduction to the Best Center and the overview and hit you with a few things just to get us warmed up, and also for some of our new people, review some of the basic information, and for some of you this will be a review. Due to our wonderful Larry Chang, the Best Center manages in four words, a four-word acronym to capture so much stuff: building science, sustainability, and energy efficiency, all in one giant mouthful. And we do try to live up to that, and it ain't easy. And it's a lot. Here we go. So first of all, what is ATE? What is funding this effort? It's the Advanced Technological Education Program from the National Science Foundation. Some of you have been able to get grants from the NSF. These are fantastic grants to get for program development at your location. And what we've learned recently is that Congress is very supportive of the ATE program, and that they are strongly encouraging applications. It takes quite a while to prepare a good, solid application, up to a year sometimes. There needs to be a very strong industry advisory group involved, and you really have to think it through carefully. We can advise you if you're interested. We can also provide technical assistance and connect you with others who can also provide technical assistance. So it's a really, really good opportunity. And in the current, even though I think NSF may be furloughed at the moment, they're really encouraging applications. The application is in October, so if you are interested, you want to hit the ground running, and we can help you as much as we can in that endeavor. Even if you've had a project grant, you can apply for a new one. We at Laney applied for a project grant to develop our commercial HVAC program, and then completed that, and then applied for another project grant to develop our BAS program. And from there, we developed the National Center, which seemed to be the only viable pathway to continue our work. So this is our vision and mission, and I know a lot of people can't see that in the back of the room, but I would call your attention to the second bullet there, which is highlight the critical role of building technicians in the operation of high-performance buildings, whether they're BAS technicians, HVAC technicians, or general building operators. Support the development and dissemination of curriculum strategies, lab strategies, and so forth. And also gain industry recognition for national certifications in these fields. The Best Center is working on a national certification for high-performance building operations professionals, and we are also working closely with the Association of Controls Professionals, which is a spin-off from BEST, led by Brian Lovell, co-PI. And they are also working on several certifications for the BAS industry. So we do have a strategic focus on high-performance commercial buildings and related technologies, BAS, energy efficiency, energy management, and renewable energy. Buildings contribute a great deal to the energy use portfolio, and their role is very, very important. Also, the conditions under which buildings are operated, the technologies in those buildings, the demands for occupant comfort, etc., have become very critical, as well as the proliferation of high-performance buildings. The need for the Best Center, and I just want to emphasize this one item. Community and technical colleges in the United States are uniquely positioned to provide the critically needed advanced technician education. What we have seen as technology has advanced and as the complexity of building operations advances, people need more education. The traditional model of on-the-job training can no longer meet the need. People really need what we offer. Our role in this is essential and mission critical. So as educators, we have a vital role going forward, and that role is only increasing in importance. The Best Center has 3 major goals, very simple, straightforward. Build and transform the instructional capacity of community and technical colleges across the country. Engage industry stakeholders to support our efforts. And finally, number 3, the item that everyone still scratches their head trying to figure out: how do we build a pipeline into this industry from high schools? And that's probably the most challenging thing. We've actually gotten a lot of industry support, and we'll be talking about that as we go along today. The biggest challenge is to figure out how to entice our K-12 partners into this industry. The jobs are plentiful. With the grain of the industry, there's really very few people coming in behind, and we're headed into a real crisis in the industry. Who we are, those are the co-PIs in Laney College, Georgia Piedmont in Georgia, in Atlanta, Milwaukee area, and Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. We'll be spending a day up there on Thursday. Some of our support partners listed, and others, of course, and then our network of faculty who participate. You'll be doing some work together. We're going to be gathering that work, posting it on the website to share, and we'll be talking more about that later. Research partners on our website, bestcenter.org, bestctr.org. We have some very important research papers that you might want to look at, as well as other stored documents, videos of lab designs, and so on. And again, highlighting our strategic partnership with the Association of Controls Professionals, led by Brian Lovell. I'm on the board, and so we are trying to build that whole initiative. And as I've said, there's a lot of resources on the Best Center website. We have virtual lab tours focusing on several colleges, including GPTC, Laney College in Eugene, and Sac City College in Sacramento, California. And we have research reports which are still relevant and vital. I'm not sure if all of our tracking functions are currently working. Larry could tell us that. We have had good success assisting colleges with lab equipment acquisition, software licensing, which is a big challenge in the BAS field. We've tried to model good practice in terms of acquisition of BAS equipment that doesn't have licensing barriers. Sometimes you think you have a license and you don't, or the license is 3 years old, and on and on. It's a big challenge, and we know that. One of our key activities is professional development opportunities, such as this workshop this week. We also have on-site and remote technical assistance, especially for BAS program development, both through BEST and through ACP. And some of you have taken advantage of that. And then, of course, we're working on these national technician certification initiatives. I would be remiss if I didn't address climate change issues a little bit. This new term, the Anthropocene Epoch, actually was described in the year 2000. The term has continued to gain traction and now appears in the new IPCC report, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It reflects a transition from the Holocene epoch, which we lived under for about 11,700 years, which allowed us to emerge from our caves and have agriculture and build civilizations, a relatively stable climate period that really has allowed us to flourish. We are now, the Anthropocene reflects the unprecedented rate and global scale of human influence on the Earth system, suggesting that the Earth has entered a new geological epoch. And scientists are still working with this concept. The rise in global CO2 is about 20 parts per million per decade, which is up to 10 times faster than any sustained rise in CO2 in the past 800,000 years. And of course, we know from science that CO2 in the atmosphere retains energy and produces global warming, as well as a myriad of other phenomena. And the Anthropocene replaces the prior epoch of the Holocene, which we talked about. And here we're quoting directly from the IPCC report of 2018. What is the impact of the Anthropocene? The cumulative impacts of human activity rank alongside other planetary scale geological events in Earth's history. The unusually stable environmental conditions that began 10,000 years ago are over. We have entered a time of greater variability and extremes, the repercussions of which we are only beginning to understand. Populations of fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals have declined by an average of 58% over the last 40 years. And scientists are now writing about mass extinctions in the near term. The Anthropocene is a turning point in the history of humanity, in the history of life, and the history of the Earth itself. Just a few trends that we're observing currently that you should be aware of. just in general. The fossil fuel industries and petrostates, which rely heavily on the export of fossil fuel products, are retrenching. The reason they're retrenching is because they may end up with assets that they cannot use. Some of you are aware that ExxonMobil was itself sued by some of its historic descendants regarding its non-disclosure and so forth, and there's a lot of concern about what are called stranded assets. Assets that in the future cannot be sold and consumed because we cannot sustain that much carbon in the atmosphere. Climate change denialism and other magical thinking. And I think you'd have to read anthropology where magical thinking comes from. But denialism, there's a lot that's been written about it. First, you deny the science, and then if that doesn't work, you say that the science has different sides and people aren't in agreement about it. And then if that doesn't work, you say, well, we need more research. So there's a whole progression around denialism to deny the science. And it kind of feeds into the fossil fuel industry, and so on. And there's other forms of magical thinking out there that I won't talk about today, and which is very evident on the national agenda right now, however. Some people want to just wall it off, so to speak. There's hydraulic fracking in West Texas and North Dakota. It has opened up secondary oil fields and is having a huge impact. It has made the U.S. the world's largest oil producer. It will have about a 10-year life cycle. It's depressing oil prices. Something to be aware of. Some other things are happening all over the world. Canada instituted a national carbon tax with yet untested results. Interestingly, the Canadian tar sands, which are a form of unconventional oil, of which there are tons and tons and tons. It's the largest deposit of potential fossil fuel in the world, is sitting up in Alberta, Canada. It is also extremely energy intensive to separate the tar from the sand. It's estimated to contribute 10% of Canada's total carbon footprint. And interestingly, they can't get it to market because the pipeline to the west was blocked, and the pipeline, the XL pipeline, which we fought out here, has been stopped through some judicial process. So it's sitting there waiting to get out of the ground. Very interesting. France attempted a carbon tax with the results that we saw recently, a lot of pushback. However, that pushback may be more than just the carbon tax. There's a lot of other changes Macron was trying to do in France, and this kind of got wrapped into that. So I don't think we can draw too much conclusion from it. Brazil, we are seeing the rise of populist governments. Brazil now intends to open up the Amazon to more agricultural development. The Amazon rainforest is a major, major mitigator of climate change. It's a huge carbon sink. So those effects in the Amazon are hugely important for all of us. Environmental justice has emerged as a major theme of climate negotiations because it's affecting island countries, it's affecting poor people, it's affecting differentially Africa, Latin America, Central America, and so climate justice has become extremely important and will continue to grow. A number of states and localities are moving forward aggressively. California, the state of Washington, New York. Some of that will be highlighted when we're up at Lawrence Berkeley Lab. There are new concepts emerging. Sustainable growth, which to me sounds like an oxymoron, but people are trying to wrap their heads around sustainable growth or sustainable development because our current model, our economic model, is growth. And that's kind of what's led us to the place that we're at. There's talk of a new Green New Deal, which again kind of enfolds environmental justice, the need for jobs, and the opportunities that the green industry offers. There's increased corporate interest. Michael Bloomberg kind of leads a major initiative in getting better risk assessment, both for insurance companies who are dealing with all of these climate catastrophes, which the bill is mounting, as well as valuation risks for corporations that are heavily invested in fossil fuels. Now, something that is also emerging into the conversation is something called geoengineering. Anybody know what geoengineering is? Geoengineering primarily is focusing now on the notion that we can block sunlight with aerosols. A totally untested idea. If we went, and people are basically saying, even researchers at MIT are saying that we're going to reach the point where we have no choice. We are overshooting 1.5 Celsius. Already we've moved past 1 degree Celsius of warming. The Arctic regions are 5 times that. So the thought is that at some point, things are going to get so difficult that we will start geoengineering out of sheer necessity. The other option is to put iron particles into the oceans so that the oceans can take up more carbon. Anyway, you'll be seeing more of that. Trends in building operations, building automation and EMS systems with growing data capacity, opportunities for greater diagnostics, energy savings, etc. Greater regulatory demands for energy performance and transparency, energy conservation goals, strengthened occupant comfort codes and standards, rapid evolution of equipment and software applications. And we'll be talking more about some of those new technologies in the next few days. In short, all of this means that the building technician is now a knowledge worker managing very complex technologies and capabilities. Many of you have seen this chart before, but basically the vertical axis there represents intensive progress creating and using new technologies. The historical axis represents extensive progress expanding the use of existing technologies. I would argue that to a great extent we are not fully utilizing the technologies that are already in place, and that the gap is right there, the education challenge. We need to teach the technicians of the future to use the technologies that are available. And really, because the technology is evolving very rapidly, one of the most critical things we do is teach people how to learn new technologies as well. In our work on the high performance building operations professional, you can see that we identified baseline skills, which are fairly typical in the workplace. And then we also identified high performance skills. And we identified this gap between the two. And most people are content to stay in this area. And so our challenge is to move people to this area. So through the efforts of Pam Wallace and California Utilities, we've been able to do a number of pilots for incumbent workers around high performance. And that work has been very interesting. That gap that we identified included these items: information technology, energy literacy, building systems dynamics, system analytics, system manuals, BAS at the supervisory level, energy conservation, commissioning, and continuous improvement. These are things that you don't get simply hanging out at the workplace for 10 years. This is where community colleges can bridge the gap. Top skills in 2020: cognitive abilities, systems skills. The ability to think at a systems level is critical. I think Jay Santos, one of our speakers, may address that. It's something that has kicked around for a long time, but it's very hard to get our heads around how we teach at the systems level. Complex problem solving, not stuff you can read on page 63. Social skills. And finally, resource management. And this is all coming from the World Economic Forum. A little bit on transformative teaching strategies, and we'll be talking a lot more about that as we work in groups. Learning is promoted if students work on whole tasks. Learning is promoted if prior knowledge is activated. And learning is promoted if students have to apply new knowledge. Immersive project-based learning promotes cognitive development. And we're going to be working on immersive project-based learning. Metacognitive skills, judgment, understanding, the capacity to reflect, do not lend themselves to being taught by rote, nor are they easy to download from a website. Active learning happens when we participate in projects that are meaningful to us and engage with the real world. So we're going to be working on that. Brian's going to talk a lot more about it, and Robert, and we're also going to reflect on what we did in Omaha. Our themes this year, and this is my last slide, we don't have a single unitary theme, I guess, because there's just too much going on. Skill changes in BAS, what's happening with the BAS industry, some high-level discussion of that with an industry expert. Climate change mitigation strategies related to buildings. California will be getting deeper into the notion that the duck curve, what happens when you have a lot of renewable energy generation at the wrong time of day. Some of those kinds of issues we'll be talking about. New and emerging technologies and applications in BAS. We'll have some hands-on lab activities, project-based learning development, and faculty presentations.